Before we found out that Mike Waltz accidentally added a journalist from The Atlantic to a Signal chat, and then that chat proceeded to discuss classified information regarding military secrets against the Houthi rebels, well, before all that, Mike Waltz actually sat down for an interview with Margaret Brennan over at Face the Nation, and he was discussing the Alien Enemies Act of 1798 that Donald Trump has invoked to strip due process rights away and has now sent innocent people down to an El Salvadorian prison where they will likely be subjected to violence, torture, and possibly even death. And one of the most egregious things about this Trump administration is not these human rights violations, but it's all of the cabinet members who do not have the stones to stand up and push back against these authoritarian impulses. Not a single person is standing up and saying, hey, this is not the right thing to do. This is not how we are supposed to treat people. You are going against. It is antithetical to the United States of America and our Constitution. But let's go ahead and take a look at this interview with Mike Waltz. Here he is talking about whether or not they even made a mistake at all. If you guys do appreciate my work, please do remember to subscribe.
Last Saturday, 238 Venezuelan men were handed over to the government of El Salvador. 137 of them were deported using this rarely used 1789 Alien Enemies Act. This is important because it gives the power to detain and deport without a court hearing first, if they come from countries at war with the U.S. In the hearing on Friday, it was revealed that El Salvador, where they're being held, rejected two of the people. One, on the basis of gender, because it was a woman and they can't be held at a maximum security prison. The other, because the person wasn't even Venezuelan at all. How does that kind of high consequence mistake happen?
Well, these kind of one-offs we'll deal with on an individual basis. But, Margaret, the underlying issue here is twofold.
So there was a mistake that you acknowledged
I can't speak to those individual cases and the details of the individual cases. But what I can speak to is President Trump has determined that this group is acting as a terrorist organization. It is terrorizing our communities through attacks, torture, rape, and the most awful of situations for those communities, number one. And number two, the Alien and Sedition Act fully applies because we have also determined that this group is acting as a proxy of the Maduro regime.
Okay, so what he is saying there is just a load of shit. The Alien Enemies Act states that there must be a declaration of war against any particular country, and then citizens of said country are now would be subject to the Alien Enemies Act. But because there is no war going on, Trump has made up this whole story about how the TDA gang is working in cahoots with the Maduro regime, and that the Maduro regime is trying to destabilize the United States with irregular warfare at the hands of the Tren de Aragua gang. That is the story they have concocted to invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. And when it was brought before a court, the judge said, hey, this does not look right. You guys need to pause what you're doing here, get all of those people back to the United States. And they just went about their business anyways. So not only are they invoking these wartime powers, but a judge told them to stop, and they refused to stop. And Mike Waltz here can't even address that there have been mistakes made. Not only are we now finding out that there are many innocent folks who have been sent there, but again, as she pointed out, there was a woman that was sent there that had to be rejected. And then she mentioned also another case that was rejected as well because this administration is so careless. And this is another tactic that we noticed from people in the MAGA world, I guess. If they pretend, they will pretend that they know none of the details about any particular case as a way to not have to talk about it in their interviews. So as you'll notice here, Mike Waltz says, "Oh well, I couldn't tell you anything about those things. We'll have to handle them one by one." This is unacceptable. These are human rights violations. You are kidnapping innocent people, and you have sent them off to a torturous El Salvadorian prison. It is just unacceptable. That is not what we do here in America. So then he is asked, well, is there any evidence that the Tren de Aragua is actually working with Maduro?
this is supposed to apply if the U.S. is at war with a country. You are saying you have evidence that the government of Venezuela is directing these gangs?
We are saying that TDA is acting as a proxy of the Maduro regime. This is how the Alien and Sedition Act applies. And we cannot have district judges interfering with the commander-in-chief's actions to take care of, in the way he deems necessary, a terrorist organization.
So the U.S. is at war
and I got to tell you,
Venezuela?
we can debate on Article 2, Article 3. That's a fair debate. However, in this case, the commander-in-chief, President Trump, is taking decisive action to rid our communities of these gangs that are operating in a paramilitary fashion, and that we know Maduro is deliberately emptying his prisons in a proxy manner to influence and attack the United States.
So did you see what he did there? He didn't answer the question. The question was, is there any evidence that this Tren de Aragua gang is actually tied to the Maduro regime at all? And any of the reporting that has been done on this has said there doesn't appear to be an actual connection between the Maduro regime and TDA. So this whole argument that they have made to declare wartime powers is just a bunch of hogwash. Maduro hasn't sent people to the United States to engage in irregular warfare. That is just a load of crap. But he doesn't even try to address the question and instead goes on to attack the judge. I mean, these people are sick. They don't care about the rule of law. They don't care about the Constitution. They are proving that they don't care about due process rights, and they're willing to just shred all of that up as long as Daddy Trump can look like the authoritarian that he wants to be. That is what is going on here. And for none of these cabinet members to stand up and do the right thing is just absolutely disgusting to me. He then goes on to attack the Democrats, saying, the Democrats are just defending the gang members and the violence.
The U.S. is not at war with the country of Venezuela. I know the Attorney General said at another network she thinks this is going to go to the Supreme Court.
Sure, that's
you
fine.
Want to have this
no,
fight.
But Margaret, we have instances where the IRGC from Iran have operated to buy with and through Mexican cartels to then bomb facilities here in the United States. We've taken decisive action in that regard. We're going to take decisive action in this regard. And we're making a Washington, D.C. distinction when the American people are tired of being terrorized by these gangs.
No one is defending gangs, but
but it sounds like it. It certainly sounds like it from the Democrats on the other side. It sounds like in the case of this judge that wanted to turn a flight around full of gang members that had intelligence packets that had determined what they're doing.
Sent to a man's prison. And El Salvador said no.
I mean,
so it's the question of if you are suspending the ability to have a day in court, that you get the list right. That you can verify that these people are gang members.
Look, every one of them were here illegally. So first of all, we had every right and should deport every one of these individuals. If you want to make a special case for one, that's fine. But underlying that is the Alien Act that has determined that the commander-in-chief has the absolute authority to do this.
Okay, guys. I'm getting so sick of these people. I'm just to be quite honest with you, nobody is defending violent gang members. If you're in the country, undocumented, illegally, however you want to phrase it, and you are part of a gang and you have been violent and you're accused of crimes, then sure, get out of the country. Nobody is disagreeing with that. But what we do have a problem with is when you are rounding up people and saying, hey, you're a part of a gang. We're sending you to El Salvador to suffer in one of the most notorious prisons of all time. And then we find out that many of these people are indeed innocent. And he tries to say that, they were all here illegally, so we had absolute right to do what we did here, when even that is not true. Many of the people that were sent to the El Salvadorian prison were here legally. They were using our asylum system and going through the legal process to obtain some sort of residency in the United States. So not everybody was here illegally, as Mike Waltz is trying to say. And then to try to say, these people are just sickening. They are lying. They have concocted this whole false narrative to invoke these wartime powers. And then we figure out that they're rounding up innocent people and sending them away after a judge told them not to. And then instead of owning up to the mistake, they go on the attack against the judge. They say that Trump has the absolute authority to do this, even though the judge told him not to. I mean, and then they blame the Democrats for trying to defend violent gang members when that is not even close to being true. Due process matters, folks. We cannot have a government that can just be walking down the street and start accusing people of a crime and then shipping them off to another country. You have to, when you give government the power to take folks' freedom away, you also have to allow those people to address those claims in a legal way. You have to give them a legal process to go through before you can just remove them from the country. I mean, the whole thing is just absolutely bizarre. And then we had Representative Jim Himes come on afterwards, right after Mike Waltz here, to actually give us a little bit of actual knowledge about what the Alien Enemies Act is and how it is being used improperly here.
The New York Times reported that the intelligence community said with moderate confidence that the gang, TDA, that we've been talking about, is not directed by the Venezuelan government. However, the National Security Advisor just told us on this program TDA is acting as a proxy of the Venezuelan government. Why does that distinction matter?
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter, and I'll come back around to that. But look, what people worry about is that this administration acts with a unbelievable kind of cocktail of incompetence and illegality. When you fire all of the people at the Department of Energy who look after our nuclear weapons and then say, oopsie, we need to hire you back, that's incompetence. I listened to Mike. Mike is a friend of mine. I have respect for Mike, but what he did was dodge your question. I'm not a lawyer, but I can read the first paragraph of the Aliens Enemy Act, which says very clearly that the authority that this administration claims is dependent on a declaration of war, not on acting as a proxy. So Mike distorted the law, and you know, I read the New York Times article too. I haven't seen specific intelligence about whether there's any connection whatsoever between Venezuela and the TDA gang, but you're right. The New York Times, by the way, I'll get an answer on this tomorrow, and I'm going to have some questions for Mike. The New York Times, of course, reported that that the intelligence community believes that there's not a meaningful connection between Venezuela and the TDA gang. So again, it's a bizarre combination of acting incompetently, because maybe there's a Venezuelan hairdresser, a gay Venezuelan hairdresser with no connection to TDA, and if he's in this country illegally, fine, deport him. But to do it in this way under authorities that are not legal is not the way to do this.
Yeah, and he's exactly right about that. And we went over this in a different video. That gay hairdresser, no gang affiliation. He was here seeking asylum legally. He was sent to El Salvador. We don't even know if we can get him back. The same is true about Jersey Barrios. He was a professional soccer player who is alleged to have been tortured by the Venezuelan government. He was coming to America to seek protection, and he was trying to do it the legal way. And he was rounded up, and he was sent to El Salvador. And we don't even know, like I said, how we're going to get these people back. That's why it was so important for the Trump administration to actually listen to what the judge had to say, because who now asserts jurisdiction? If a judge here in D.C. says these people need to be set free, are the people in El Salvador even going to abide by those court orders? I mean, these are just human rights violations that we have not seen in modern times. And it is an absolute atrocity that the United States government is the one who is engaged in what is tantamount to human trafficking. I mean, just think about the whole thing together. The Trump administration claims that we are in wartime against the TDA gang that somehow has connection to the Maduro regime. None of those things have been proven. He invokes these wartime powers from 1798 so he can strip due process rights away from folks, and then he ignored a judge while he was deporting innocent people to an El Salvadorian prison. It is all just a bunch of hogwash. This is all an effort to make the Trump administration look big, bad, and tough on the whole mass deportation thing. And then they say, send Kristi Noem down there to stand in front of the prison doors. It is It is disgusting. These people are being cruel for cruelty's sake, and we have to stand up and push back against this every step of the way, because these human rights violations should be prosecuted, and these people should be put in jail. That is what is going on here. So I will leave it there for now, guys. This story just works me up. I am so irritated by what this Trump administration is doing, so we have to stand up and fight back against this authoritarian takeover. I will leave it there for now. If you guys got anything out of this video, please do remember to smash that like button and subscribe. Maybe share with a friend or two. I'd very much appreciate that. We've got to build something here on the left that adequately pushes back against this right-wing media ecosystem that just shovels this kind of shit for Donald Trump every single day. So if you do like what I do here, please do remember to smash that subscribe button. It is free. And if you guys want to learn more about some of the innocent people who were actually deported using the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, go ahead and watch that video on the screen now. Otherwise, I'll see you guys on the next one.